I'm Michael Ien Cohen, and I'm shredding the gnar with Steve Shooter.
I am Michael Ien Cohen, and I am shredding the gnar with Steve Shooter. When I was a kid, people asked me if I wanted to be a pro skater. I didn't even know what that was. I just wanted the world to make sense.
No matter how much we say, well, we don't care about what those people think, we all care.
I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, no.
I went through a period where I was just like confused with my life.
If you have grown up being told you're not good enough or feeling you're not good enough for so long, you just end up starting to believe that narrative and you don't have to.
This is something that is bigger than the skateboarder, it's the person.
I mean, skateboarding is something that I do, you know, it's not who I am.
Growing up, it was like some days I wasn't like white enough for my white friends, or some days I wasn't black enough for my black friends.
As a kid, you're always gonna hear things like racist jokes or like comments and stuff, so I feel like it's important to be that one that like steps up and you're like, that's actually like not cool to say, you know?
I get negative stuff thrown at me daily. And the crazy thing is the majority of it are males.
I was either a poser who wished I was a skateboarder but wasn't because I was female, or I was too masculine because I was so interested in skateboarding.
Very often, people think if you're gay, it means you're perverted. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
The uncertainties from my childhood held me back for so long. I needed to understand the world all around me. It all starts with a conversation, and we all need to be part of it. Are your teachers doing their job, or do you think they're failing you?
Sometimes they're failing me.
These kids can run the town and be the top if you believe in them and if you love them.
The environment, that's not a left or right issue, that's a human issue.
Regardless of political, that's just, when you look at it, you know that that's not the right thing.
I'm a fighter, I'm stubborn. You say the world's beyond saving, I'll try to disprove that.
Failure only exists when you give up. That's the only time you fail.
The most uncomfortable you're ever gonna be is when you're in fear and you're not moving forward.
I don't think anybody has ever said, geez, I'm really happy that I played it safe in life and nothing bad happened.
But you know what? Nothing extraordinary happened either.
I think everyone inherently wants to do good, but sometimes people don't have the tools or the know-how to do so.
But I would just say that if you do go help others in need, you're gonna feel good about it.
In the end, all of us can understand the challenges facing humanity. The question is, what are we going to do about it?
We are live in Lifestyle.
Are we live? I'm alive.
Oh, we live. Firstly, live? I want to thank a Lifestyle surf shop down here in Musenberg Corner for having us, for hosting us, for our podcast, Shredding the Gnar. I'd like to say thank you to Seasick Threads, the best board bags in the world, as well as my associates down at Wavescape. We've just come off the back of a 3-week Wavescape Surf Festival meltdown. I'm not ignoring the guy on my right, to your left.
I thought you were.
Well,
it's very offensive. Easily offended.
He landed as a filmmaker. He's here now as my friend, Mr. Michael Ien Cohen.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste. It's very awkward.
It's very awkward.
Should
we redo it?
You Americans have got all these weird sorts of things. We should actually, how about, I'm going to teach you a new one?
Go through it? Well, I already learned this one is a little bit different here in South Africa.
No, he thought that this means peace, but sorry, guys. Welcome, Michael Ien Cohen, to South Africa. I wanted to say something before we moved on. Oh, yes, I was going to show you how to do one.
Let's go.
Okay, this is called the jellyfish, right? We're just going to do a fist bump, and then we're going to pull away like a jellyfish.
Yeah, no, that's common. That's common. Oh, I have to do the actual animation jellyfish motion.
Yes.
Okay, let's try it again.
Not just pull away like that. That's a jellyfish with rigor mortis set in.
That's a dead jellyfish.
That's a dead. This is a very live.
All right, let's try it again.
And the more swish you can give it, the more style it becomes, right?
I'm going to fully commit to this.
Okay, cool, bro. One,
starting from scratch.
2, 3. Welcome, Mr. Michael Ien Cohen. That's how we do it in Shredding the Gnar. That's the jellyfish Boom, bang,
I'm
shang.
local now. It's like I've lived here my whole life in Cape Town.
Michael, do you realize where you are? You're in Africa. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, imagine that you'd be sitting here in Cape Town, South Africa?
Specifically in the wildest ones. That's it. But no, as you know, we've discussed this last night at the screening and stuff. Everything about the film is so far beyond my most optimistic, my wildest expectations. So everything is beyond the expectations. Everything is fantastic. Everything is living in a fantasy state right now. So
amazing.
Yeah. So long answer to a short question. No.
Well, that was actually a short answer because I know that you can answer. I'm even starting to speak like him. Michael is not from California, where everybody thinks like cool skaters and surfers come from. Actually, Mike, well, you say that. I mean, skateboarders come from, like some of the coolest skateboarders do come from where Michael's from, which is New York City.
Yeah.
The Big Apple.
Yeah. I started skating in 74, 75. So I didn't even know there was a skate scene going on in California, what they were doing out there.
Really?
I didn't know. Yeah, when I moved to California, Southern California, for only 2 years. So I was born in Brooklyn, been in New York all my whole life, but when I was 10, for 2 years, I moved to California. And that's when skating exploded to me. I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I saw guys like Tony Alva in Skateboarder magazine. There were no skateboarding magazines in New York. I was like, what the hell is going on out here? But I would see Tony Alva coming out above the coping in the pools, and I was blown away. Yeah, so I couldn't, it was like unfathomable for me to think that all these years later I would A, be a filmmaker, and B, having these guys who were like heroes, they were like gods, they were like beyond cool, that I'd be interviewing them for this film that they would be a part of with me. So,
well, there we go. I mean, this is where we get to talk about some of these characters because, you know, you gave away your age there, so thanks for doing that. But in those days, we're talking like the boys of Dogtown. We're talking about the Pal Peralta, and now you've got guys like Tony Alva, Steve Caballero, Christian Hosoi, the guys that we grew up with posters on our walls and Thrasher magazine and all these characters and more. I mean, there's how many in the film? 70?
With the credits, the gems we put in the credits, the cast is probably closer to 75, close to 80 people, which is hard to imagine how this actually has a narrative flow and an arc and resonates with you emotionally. But yeah, the cast is huge. Almost 80 people in the cast. And by the way, just a clarification, so Stacy Peralta the guy's a gem of a human being. I've never met him in person, actually.
Oh, I do apologize.
So unfortunately, he didn't make it into the film, but you can leave it in there. I don't need to be polished. You know, like you're a very polished individual.
Yeah, you are sweating a bit as well. I need to get you a cloth because I know I have this sort of effect on people, but
it was the romantic serenade that happened earlier. But
cut to the serenade. This is what happened in the shop earlier on. We have to give him a proper South African welcome.
But he but when I am Stacy
feel
and
free
Mike
to
from
stretch your
Skate
legs
One,
out if you want.
They gave me all of their they sent me a box of DVDs of all of the Bones Brigade videos and gave me permission to use anything I want in the collection for B-roll for free because the whole film is a charity film. And so when he found out that I was e-foiling and Stacy had started e-foiling, Stacy picked up the phone and called me and wanted to give me all these tips and help me get started and learning how to stand as quickly as possible. And
amazing.
Huge leg up from Stacy. He was a great guy.
Amazing, amazing. A leg up onto an e-foil.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about why you're in South Africa. As I've said, we've just come off the back of a 3-week Wavescape Surf Film and Art Festival whirlwind.
Right.
And I think that, you were asking the question, well, Humanity Stoked is the name of the film. And there's going to be a lot of links down below for you to check out the previews and the trailers because we're still busy. Mr. Michael Cohen's still busy working on distribution, which is around the corner. Right around the corner. So Humanity Stoked is primarily to do with people within the skateboarding community. How did it fit in with the surf film and arts festival that is Wavescape? Well, it definitely did because there are so many charities and so many NPOs and social upliftment programs that Wavescape is involved in that dovetail and resonate with the charities and the ethos and whatever you want to call it. The film is about that. Tell us about Humanity Stoked.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity because it's hard sometimes for people to understand because they see the cast and there's like almost any pro skater from back in the day, from Alva and Hizoi and those guys, and through all the modern people, Lizzie and Tony Hawk and Najee Houston, whomever, and it's like Boo Johnson and P-Rod. It's hard for people to think it's not just a skateboarding film, but basically the film is a cast of all of the world's most iconic skaters, but also iconic surfers, scientists, activists, educators, musicians, artists, all of whom share a love of skateboarding, but also really share a love of humanity. The film itself is not directly about skateboarding. It is about 9 or 10 issues that affect all of us, which is why the film is so relatable to people. So as you know, having been at the screening for the first time with us, it is a film about primarily fear and all of the things that can affect in our lives. So not only how fear can affect our perception of reality, and how it could affect our decision making and what the ramifications of that are, and other things that it could lead to, including environmental issues, including various forms of xenophobia, from whether it's homophobia, racism, colorism within racism, discrimination of all types, issues of inequality, but also other human issues such as depression and addiction, and how we can descend into it, and how, more importantly, how we can emerge from that a better version of ourselves, and not only be able to have a positive impact on our own lives, but how we can have a positive impact on the lives of people all around us, on a community level, a state level, province level, depending on where you are, on a country level, and on a global scale. That all of us, I believe, firmly, passionately, that we all have the ability to have a positive impact on our lives and the world around us. But if you're living in a state of fear, and you're letting that really guide you and hold you back, which so many of us are, I was for decades, and you're not going to be able to get to that place. You're not going to be able to grow enough and be able to have that impact. And so I hope that's what people take away from the film. And I know finally now for a fact that happens, because as happened last night here in Cape Town, the people that not only come up to me after the screening, men and women alike, some of them in tears, that just want a hug and to talk about how that film made it okay for them to talk about some of these issues that they're struggling with. But also the people that reach out to me on social media and express their gratitude and talk about how deeply they were inspired. So I know the film is doing it, and that's really the most important thing, because that's why I made it. There's no money in this for me, as you know. I made the film, produced it entirely for free, and I'm giving all the money away. This really is a mission of love to help inspire people, hopefully with the end game being some positive change in our lives and some positive social change for the world around us.
Wow, amazing, bro, amazing.
We're not doing the jellyfish now?
Not anymore. It's gotten very serious right now. Okay. Yeah, so I want you to describe the scene at the Labia Theatre, which is, it's an iconic old theatre here in Cape Town, one of the few theatres. Do you see the camera? Do you see the shot going lighter and then darker?
I don't detect it.
Watch there, it's light. Now look. Now it's going darker.
I see the framing box, but that's it.
Okay. What do you think that is? It's a sensor, hey? It's a light sensor. It's sort of like getting lighter. There, it's bright, and then it sort of pulls back to dark. I've got automatic autofocus on. Maybe that's...
Yeah, so I never shoot with that. I never use autofocus. Here we have to, because it's just us up here in this cool space.
I don't think it's that noticeable, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
But I think that if you and I are interesting enough, it won't matter.
It won't matter.
Content, as they say, content is king.
Oh, I've just got to stretch my leg. Oh, thank you. Getting back to the scene at the Labia Theatre, a beautiful old theatre where there's been screenings. The original Endless Summer was screened there in 1950-something. I know it's not a skate-related film, but it's certainly of the counterculture. And it was a packed house. The Labia was packed last night. There were loads of people, a diverse group of people that were there, which was great to see. But what I did see is I saw a lot of people crying and a lot of people really touched by what they saw. And I find it quite interesting and ironic that a group of people like skateboarders, you think of an archetypal skateboarder, and you think of someone that's pretty tough, that is like really out there and willing to like get in people's faces with what they do and how they are, right? You see these, it's almost like a personality that is not a vulnerable one, a very confident person, you know? And yet we had these big characters, you know, we spoke of the Tony Elvers of the world and the Christian Assoys and the Ray Barbies and the Tony Hawks being extremely vulnerable people and open about the challenges that they've faced in life and the fear-based barriers they've had to overcome. And that was the beautiful thing about it, that, you know, it's really encouraging everyone to just, you know what, like let go of that pride. We're all imperfect humans and we're always working to be the better version of ourselves. We're always failing as well. But that's okay. You get up and but if you're open about it, open about the things you're struggling with, it's like, it's literally like walking around with a bunch of rocks in your pocket, but nobody knows about it. And the minute you take those rocks out and you put them on the table, it feels so much better, man.
I don't think that, from my experience, and you know, now traveling the world and talking to a lot of people from different countries, which means different cultures and different standards of what's acceptable to talk about openly. And I don't think enough people still understand the price that you pay for keeping your guard up. There's a tremendous amount of mental resources, emotional resources, and depending upon how hippy-dippy you want to be, you know, spiritual resources, that there's a heavy toll that you pay to keep that guard up, to protect yourself. And I found through my own personal experiences and just through education that coming out of my own depression and you know, when you do, like you said, let go, you could let those rocks fall away and you feel lighter. You feel lighter mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and your eyesight metaphorically improves. Because as I said in the film, it's not that getting past these fears and worrying about these various things helped me get through doors that were previously locked. I said in the film that I was suddenly able to see doors that I didn't even know existed. And so for people like this one girl who came up to me after the screening, literally in tears, and I just, you know, and was grappling with being held back by fear and leading that into depression, and it was just, you know, it was horrible. You get into this vicious cycle where you keep going down and down. But yeah, once you let go of that, and you can suddenly find that there's a path out, but it requires you to have faith that that it will affect your life in a positive way for you to let go. And I tell people all the time that I believe firmly, and I know from my own experience and talking to people, that those that have done it, that have finally let go of the fear, it's hard to look back and ever want to go down that path again. You become a better version of yourself in so many ways, and it's a fantastic journey you can end up going on.
Liberating.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, you know, we talk about the journey, and let's pull it back a bit. Like, what is the key motivating factor for you to have even embarked on this journey? What started it all?
Okay, good question. I wanted to be in filmmaking. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be in front of the camera, behind the camera. I was in love with the art form. Even though as a kid, I didn't even think of filmmaking as an art form. On a deeper level, I recognized that, and this is how I saw my future. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a humanitarian. I wanted to make a positive difference in this world. And I had lived a fear-based life. I became the poster boy for the foundation I started, which we were talking about, which is called the whatstopsyou.org Foundation, at whatstopsyou.org. You can get more information on it, helping people understand fear and how to get past that. But I led a fear-based life. And it wasn't until I was in my late 40s, 48, 49, that I had slid into a devastating depression. There were a lot of factors that led to that depression. One of those factors was coming to the realization that if I'm lucky enough to live until 90, I'm gonna be on my deathbed and really feel a tremendous amount of shame. Not for having succeeded at being an amazing humanitarian and a beautiful filmmaker and all of this crap. The shame would absolutely have been justified because it would have been caused by the realization that I never had the guts to even try, to not spend a day of my life trying to do something that was intrinsic to my value system and that I knew would bring me a life of satisfaction and purpose. And so when I came out of that depression, I had, 2 daughters. I was like, well, I'm not going to kill myself. I can't do that. And what am I going to do? And if I can't die, then I'm going to have to live. And decided that as I come out of this, that I'm not going to let fear anymore guide my hand. I'm not going to let it affect my perception of reality. I'm not going to let it affect my decision making. And I'm a human being. Of course, you go back. You have moments where you fail. I'm not like trying to say I'm a superhero with it. But that was where I wanted to be, to just make sure every day that I would not give in to any fears like that and just start moving forward. So when I started this film, I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to make a film, and I'm going to combine 3 things in my life that were a part of my life since I was a child, which was skateboarding, which was humanitarian endeavors, and it was filmmaking. And conceived of Humanity Stoked and bought a used camera and just started lining up interviews. I've never met a pro skater in my life. I never met a filmmaker. I never read a book on filmmaking. I never watched a YouTube video. And I just fuck it. I'm just gonna keep going forward, picking up the phone, reaching out to people, Googling, sending out emails, hustling. And just start, just a lot of hustle, a lot of creative thinking, really thinking outside the box, which is so important when you don't have connections. It's like you can't go through the regular channels. Yep. You'll just get shut down. Yep. And so to figure out ways to navigate around how most people would do it. And that was the inspiration. The decision to live versus die, metaphorically, literally, and move forward.
Amazing. And I think there's a lot of people who can draw a huge amount of inspiration from your life experience and what you've been through. But you kind of taken it to the extreme here. You've really grabbed the bull by the proverbial horns. And I think, by your energy and pouring it back into Humanity Stoked, the very fact that you're doing all of this, everything in its entirety, to help and benefit other people, is the biggest gift that you could give anyone or any project in your life, essentially. So would you call this would this be a pinnacle point in your trajectory of what we call life, would you say? This mission, this journey?
It's an interesting question. The thing is, you're looking at it from a logical perspective, to know if something is a pinnacle point, you would almost need to see both ends of the thing, your past and your future, and know where is that pinnacle moment.
Put it this way, is it a highlight in your life?
It is the highlight. It is so far beyond whatever my most beautiful and wild and profoundly meaningful hopes, dreams, and expectations. And no matter what happens, I remember at one point when I was maybe 3/4 through making the film, and I still had no idea if I was going to finish it, right? The vast majority of people that even decide they want to be a filmmaker, they never really do it. And then from that smaller group, the people that do start making a film, the majority actually don't finish it. And it's not because people are lazy or failures. There's a million stumbling blocks that make it very difficult. So I'm extremely fortunate. I'm very grateful. But I got to the point where I just broke down. And even though I didn't, forget about distribution, I didn't even really start editing it yet. And I broke down because I realized that fear that I had, and some fears, by the way, I'm not saying fear is bad. Unjustified fear, unchecked fear without understanding is bad, but some fears serves a purpose. And I had this fear that I would, like I said, be on my deathbed and filled with shame. And I realized that ship sailed. If the film wasn't completely finished, or if it finished and it was a just piece of shit that no one wanted to watch, one thing wouldn't matter. I no longer had to worry that I would be an old man and filled with the shame of never having had the courage to try and do what I've always wanted to. And that in itself, you talk about, can you put those rocks down? Can they just vaporize and disappear? That was an incredibly meaningful moment in my life. And I started crying because I was like, my whole life being afraid to do something. I was like, that's it, I've done it. So everything from that point forward was just bonus. Everything was gravy. Everything was like whatever. So the fact that it ended up connecting with people, the fact that we've been in 35 film festivals around the world and we're still not done. Quick tangent, and I've said this to you and I announced it, this is like one of the most special film festival experiences. It was like Wavescape here in Cape Town, South Africa, and a quick shout out to Tampere, Finland, Tampere Film Festival. Out of all of the film festivals, like these guys just make me feel like family. It's like being here with family. It's the friendships that I've made already are so meaningful, and I'm grateful. And Steve here is one of them. Obviously, he's got some problems with his judgment. He wants to be friends with me, so I forgive him for that.
Yeah.
But it's an unbelievable experience.
Good associations spoil bad habits. Or was it the other way around? Bad associations. Right, that was beautiful. And now you know why Michael has made this film. Well, the motivating factors. There's not much more that we can say except like, wow, it's amazing that you've got this far with so many what we call big names. We think of them as big names, but at the end of the day, they're just humans like us. But there's a lot of them that have achieved a lot of great things because of their passion for what they do, right? And so you cannot discount the fact that irrespective of the challenges they've been through, they've done a lot of like successful things with their craft and their talent. And I think it's beautiful to hear that tempered with their openness, them being candid, that yes, they might be these like pro skaters or whatever, but they still have to deal with day-to-day life challenges, which include racism, it includes sexism, it includes depression, and there's all these things in this film that really get unpacked and get addressed, because most of the time these issues get swept under the carpet. Now we look at this board behind us here, and you may recognize Sir David Attenborough over here. We recently had an art board auction, as we do every year for Wavescape, and the money that is raised from the sale of these boards go to charities, NPOs here in our local community. And Michael just walked into this artboard auction and fell in love with Sir David Attenborough.
I was already in love with Sir David Attenborough, the human being. Then I fell in love with the board that Marty did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Marty McFly. His link's down below, the gentleman who actually painted this board. But he's not taking commissions for at least a year because we've got some projects on the horizon. We've got him locked up. So long story short, Michael walks in. He's like, dude, I've got to have this board. I've like literally got to have this board. Like we frantically Googling the US dollar to South African Rand rate and working out based on what the other boards are going for. We're not going to say what it sold for, because it's out there. But Michael very lovingly and kindly decided he was going to take this board. And that he did. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
So Michael is the proud owner of Sir David Attenborough. What's your plans for Dave?
So,
I
won't mention the amount. It's an insane amount of money that someone would spend on a surfboard. But in my mind, I bought it because my plan was to increase its value and then re-auction that off and raise more money for charity. And so I'd like to have some of my cast sign it. Guys like Tony Hawk, guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Shepard Fairey, Lizzie Armando, Alva, get these people to sign the board, and hopefully, if I could pull this off, to have Sir David Attenborough sign the board. I got to get myself on a flight to England and meet with David Attenborough.
Knock on his door.
Yeah,
in the
just show up with the
little country
surfboard.
village and just
that's
what you do.
That's it. And so yeah, and then bring it back and have it reglassed. You know,
if you walk down the high street, because in England, having lived there for many years, they call it the high street. Right. Every town has a high street.
Yeah,
it's the main road. If you find out where David Attenborough lived, and just walked down the high street with that under your arm, somebody is going to point you in the right direction because it'll look pretty odd. This American dude
call him out.
Walking through. David. So David, I have your surfboard for you. Yeah, that'll be wild.
Yeah, so that's my plan, and but as I joked, half joked, as with I have I don't even know how dozens upon dozens of skateboards and other types of memorabilia from the cast that are all signed. Every time we did an interview, I did 110 interviews in multiple countries over 3-4 years, and most people gave me some signed memorabilia, all for a giant charity auction we're going to have, and temporarily, these items are all hanging, in my studio, and they're starting to feel like mine, and I know they're not. This is going to be particularly painful to let go of, but I'm going to let go of all of it for charity. But I did talk Marty into making another Attenborough that'll be just for me that I could keep. So I'm going to have to fly to England with 2 Attenborough boards for Sir David to sign, and we'll see if I can pull that off.
Well, please, Sir David, if you by some hook or crook watching this, please sign this board. It'll mean the world to all of us.
Yeah,
and it's very good. And I think the cool thing about this is that, we think Sir David Attenborough, he's such an iconic figure in the world of conservation. No more needs to be said about the man, but, taking the characters and the cast from the film and what they stand for and everything they've spoken about, one of these issues, and you do touch on this in your film, is that of conservation and how we treat the planet and how that is viewed as well. Yeah. It's equally as important as all the other issues and challenges that get spoken about that we mentioned earlier, right? So it fits in really well for any one of those casts to have some sort of a interest in wanting to sign this board, because I mean,
for me, getting the cast to sign it, that's
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's a phone call, but Attenborough will be a little bit more difficult. But I've got, knock on wood, I made this whole movie from nothing, without any funding, without any experience. So I have again, knock on wood, a pretty good track record of being able to figure out how to get some stuff done, and so and it's for a good cause, and this man has a beautiful heart, and so I'm not too worried that.
Okay, go. There's a little competition here.
Yeah, how so?
Okay, so behind us we've got some. Sir David Attenborough will be proud of this fact. We've got some plastic plants, right? Obviously, not the greatest, because he'd preferred to see real ones here. But bear with us, Sir David. I want you to do your best Sir David Attenborough voice.
I will not.
Do your best Sir David Attenborough voice, introducing. I don't know. Just work with the plastic plants. Let's see who does it.
Let's go. We'll go David.
Okay.
Go ahead. Kick us off.
I must kick you off. We are here in the depths of the southernmost tip of Africa. We find ourselves nestled between the fake yet likable plastic plants of the lesser known Augmentalis aurealis Michael Ien Cohen. Over to you, my trusted fellow David.
Thank you, sir. Most people don't understand that the plastic plants look real, but they break down into microplastic plants. And this has a detrimental effect on the environment and on the world all around us. But it's not too late if we take control of our actions and make better decisions moving forward.
Bro, I've got to hold myself together. That was like a Hispanic/Cuban David Attenborough.
I just came back from Cuba, so there it was the influence. And by the way, I was trying to work a Cuban into it, and that you picked it up is so respectable.
Okay. So. Speaking of which, okay, right. So I want to know why, because one of the first things I saw was you skating around he does this, by the way. He does this on his Instagram stories and that. He skates around airports wherever he goes. And then he this is Sir Michael Cohen here, shoots himself skating on this board through, where places he's probably not supposed to skate, but he still does it.
That is correct.
Why Cuba? Why Cuba? Why did you first go to Cuba?
One of in the original idea for the film was really interviewing people that are involved or connected in skateboarding and doing some type of good in the world. And, looking back on it now, the film may not have been particularly interesting in that way, or it would be for about 10 minutes, but after a while, no one wants to just, here's one do-gooder after another in this self-righteous kind of crappy film. And so the first one we were going to film in Cuba, this guy Michael Brook, which was the editor of Concrete Wave magazine, introduced me to these guys in Cuba. It's a charity called Amigo Skate, a great charity run by this guy, Rene Lecour. And just before we were about to embark on this trip to Cuba, his son Kaya overdosed on heroin, and drugs and addiction ended up becoming part of the film, but I had no idea how much a part of it would become before this happened. They canceled the trip, and subsequently Rene called me up and he said, we need to go to Cuba and film there. This is what Kaya, my son, would have wanted. And so we went to Cuba, and that's how the film started. And talking to Rene about what happened to his son created a very emotionally charged moment that is actually in the film. Yeah. And that's what changed what Humanity Stoked actually became. And so very recently, just a few months ago, I went back to Cuba to host a free screening for the kids of Havana, and really from all over Cuba, mostly in Havana, because people would reach out to me all the time in Havana and they would say, we're getting word that this film is being shown around the world and it's winning awards, and how can we see it? And I realized that they can't. They'll never be able to see that film in Cuba for the most part, for most people. And it began to feel something that it wasn't. It began to feel opportunistic, that I would go to Cuba and film with these beautiful people. And I do have a love for the people there. And to take from them and then go away and make this film, and I'm all over the place and just forget that it happened. And I knew I needed to give them an opportunity to see it. And so these guys at La Marca Tattoo, very famous tattoo parlor, the oldest tattoo parlor in Havana, which also has an art gallery. And as you're not going to be surprised, they're also immersed in skate culture and surfing culture. And they agreed to host the film.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I went down to Cuba specifically to do that and have a screening there for the kids. And it was an amazing experience. And I got my first tattoo afterwards. They said, you're going to get a tattoo? And I'm like, yeah. And we could maybe, you'll cut it in, but yeah, it's Cuba and the Amigo Skate logo, which is a heart formed from two intersecting skateboards with the hands. Wow. And then of course he wouldn't take any money from me. I tried to pay him for the tattoo and he was just like, no. And very special tattoo right here. Yeah.
That's incredible. I must say that point in the film was wow, so heavy. To have seen, his father's from despair to thankfulness to love, and the power within him to want to honor his son and to carry on with the project must have been immense for you to experience, right? And to go there and to be a part of that and to witness that moment where there's a moment in the film where he takes his son's ashes and he puts them into the paint, and the paint is going on the walls. You can't begin to imagine what that father must be feeling, and it was just a beautiful moment,
Yeah.
And in honor of the legacy of his son, who unfortunately didn't get the chance to unpack the fear in time. He was sucked into that world, and there was obviously something that led him down that path. And films like this help us understand that if we can get to it quicker, we can help people just open up about things that they're hiding. We could ultimately save more lives that shouldn't be lost.
Yeah, and for me, that's one way to honor Renee and honor Kaya, is to, when we lose someone, and I lost my father recently, and it's not that I can't even begin to compare losing a father who's older and losing a child. I can't imagine that unbearable pain, but the only way that I could, honor him is to show him and Renee in the film in a respectful way, and with the hope that it will inspire people that are struggling with addiction. And there are people in the film that struggle with alcoholism and addiction to harder drugs like heroin. And even last night, hours after the screening, we had that after party, and then I'm in the street by myself, just like trying to get an Uber to get back. And someone from the audience came up to me, this guy, and he had a history struggling with drugs and alcohol addiction and some depression. And came up to me on the street and to just thank me for providing what was, an inspiration to him. It's not me telling you my film is inspiring people. It's just just sharing what people are telling me, and it's better than a review and even distribution, whatever. To see people come up and to let me know that the film not just impact them emotionally. I mean, you want to cry in a movie, go watch a narrative. There's tearjerkers, there's great films. But to have it affect them on that visceral level, but in a way that not only makes them emotional, but allows them to feel okay about expressing that emotion, and to have it inspire them as well, is unbelievable. And in those ways, showing what I did with Renee and Kaya is not gratuitous. It's something that brings some meaning and something positive that could come out of a very unfortunate death due to a heroin. Yeah.
Wow. And he was only a young man, right?
Yeah, he was a kid.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So where to now? What do? We wait for the film to be released, and when the film is released, which is hopefully just around the corner, Mr. Cohen, we need to watch this film because, as we've said, and I think we can't say it enough. It's profoundly, deeply profoundly moving, it's just phenomenal to watch. So how can people support Humanity Stoked? I mean, you've not taken money from the film. All the money that will be raised from the film will go to charities. How can people get involved and help propel this narrative, this story, and get it in front of people?
One way that everyone can help simply is that just follow us on social media. We're on Facebook too, but it's kind of Facebook.
Yeah.
But especially on Instagram, please follow us. Comment on the post, share things to your story, because when we sit down at a distribution table and we could show the followers that we have, and people can see how it's resonating with people from around the world, it is really helpful to us. So please definitely follow us. Everything, all our social media is at Humanity Stoked.
Gotcha. At Humanity Stoked.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, I would love for people to help. If people have money, I do have a children's charity. If you happen to have the means and you like making charitable donations, financial contributions to beautiful charities, go to whatstopsyou.org.
Down below the link. Yeah. I'm going to put it right here.
You could just make a credit card donation. And that foundation, like the film, it doesn't pay rent. It doesn't pay salary. It's a lean machine, so that the money that's given to the foundation goes to help make a difference in people's lives, especially people living at or below the poverty line that are struggling with making something out of their own life and need inspiration and need help. And that our foundation provides that to those people. That's it. Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a cracker. I just want to express, not only from me, but from the whole Wavescape team, and wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you.
I also want to say that Mr. Michael Ien Cohen, he came as a stranger. He now leaves as a friend. And I don't say this because of the film. I say this because of you as a person. Because the energy that this man gives off, and the motivating factor which he wears his heart on his sleeve, is what makes this film possible. And I can't thank you enough for coming all the way to South Africa to be a part of this and to become a friend.
Feeling is mutual. It's been an honor, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Shredding the Gnar. Oh yeah.
Is this time lapse too?
No, this is just video. So here we are, just driving around Cape Town with none other than Ien, because there's too many other Michael Cohens
There's a
out
lot
there.
of us.
He's the guitarist, there's a musician, Michael Cohen, isn't there a musician, Michael Cohen?
There's a Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen sadly is no longer with us, but he's amazing.
Legend.
Yeah, there's a couple of other filmmakers, Michael Cohen, so I'm Michael I.E.N. Cohen.
Michael I.E.N. Yes.
Ian. Weird spelling.
Ian. Yeah, it is a strange spelling for Ian. Hey Michael, it's been a whirlwind tour for you visiting South Africa. How has it been the last 48 hours? In a word.
Fulfilling. Meaningful. There's two words for you. Meaningful and fulfilling. Yeah, this has been a dream. It's like living in a dream world, you know. An honor to be here, and you guys are fantastic. I love South Africa. Cape Town is just a beautiful place, and it's beyond my wildest expectations of what I could experience coming here and having a sold out screening at Wavescape. Just amazing the way people have been coming up to me over the last 2 days, talking about how the film impacted them on an emotional level is profoundly meaningful.
Yeah, and I think the film in itself, Humanity Stoked, it really touches us in a way that wants us to be better people, and it reminds us that, you know, like, let go of fears, let go of whatever fear that you have inside. And it's the beautiful interviews that you have with people that resonate with so many people, so much so that I myself had tears in my eyes. There were people crying everywhere in the audience, and it's your ability to get people to express themselves and show their true vulnerability about how they've navigated life, how they've navigated challenges. Thank you for being here, dude.
Much love, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was one of the most surprising things, you know, looking back in retrospect, because I went into these interviews. I've never interviewed anyone before. I didn't really know what to expect, and with intent, not having expectations proved to be like a very helpful technique, you know, because it allowed me to just be open and go with the flow instead of trying to reach for something and then having it feel forced. But I'm so grateful that the people that I interviewed really did, as you said, as you saw, accept their own vulnerability. And I found that accepting my own vulnerability in those interviews, as I said during the talk, you know, a lot of times you're interviewing someone and then they may be moved to tears, and I'm like, half the time I'm crying sometimes in some of the interviews. But when people see people being vulnerable and being okay with letting their guard down, they tend to let their guard down and they accept their own vulnerability. And through that experience, you have two people that could really have an honest, open, emotional conversation about really important issues and deeply personal perspectives on important issues. And so for that, I'm grateful, you know, that people accepted that and opened up to me during the production of the film.
Yeah, issues that in the past have been swept under the carpet for too long, right? You know, issues that people don't want to address. Maybe they are a victim of a certain type of treatment that is described in the film. Let's say it's racism, let's say it's comments, it's little comments that they have to put up with on a daily basis that erode their soul, but they're too afraid to speak up about it. Or there's those that are slinging the comments that have a fear of someone that is not of the same color as them. And that fear is like, you know, it's a perception essentially. I always use the example of like when you have these people that move in next door and you don't know what they're like.
Right.
You do one of two things. You either peep through the curtain and you say, oh, that guy, he dresses like this, or he drives this car, and you make assumptions.
Right.
Or you bake a pie and you go outside and you say, welcome to the neighborhood. You have a meaningful conversation with them. Yeah. And your perception of what they look like is completely different to actually what they like.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, so true. Having these preconceived these ideas of what people are and who they are is such a terrible and potentially even dangerous thing, because what you end up doing,
it's cancerous,
but what you end up doing when you have this preconceived notion of who someone is, you even inadvertently, unconsciously, you end up projecting that onto them.
Yeah.
And no matter who they are when you meet them, it filters your perception of them in real time, and you end up having a tendency to perceive them as you thought you would, unless they're so strikingly different. It has to just punch you in the face and you're like, okay, wow, I was really wrong. But not enough people are comfortable saying I was wrong about any number of issues, including wrong about the way they even see themselves. And it's hard to go through a period of personal growth as much as people want to do that. And I'm not saying everyone needs to. I'm not one of these people like, oh, you're not having a period of personal growth. You know, you're not on this plane. But if people do want to go through a period of personal growth, you can't really even begin to do that until you're comfortable saying, I was just fucking mistaken about my belief system, my value system, even my belief about who I am. Until you're comfortable doing that. But in terms of what you were talking about a second ago, I've been fortunate to travel the world, and whether I'm in Germany or Finland or here in Cape Town in South Africa, like culturally, there may be issues where people are less comfortable talking about, say, depression or addiction or their xenophobic, ideas about, who they need to be afraid of. But one thing is universal throughout the world, to one extent or another, and that is men being comfortable expressing their feelings, talking about their vulnerability, admitting to themselves, no less people around them, that they may be suffering from depression and that they may need help. They're embarrassed to go admit it, no less seek professional help. And so I see that when I do these Q&As, like last night, where people come up to me, sometimes, we should turn that camera around. a little levity. Some. Oh my goodness, man. You know what? God bless that person. You know what? Proud, full moon pride.
A round of applause for that young lady. Well, you said the word there, right? You said the word, and I think that's the biggest barrier for anyone before they actually let go of anything, and that is the word pride. In a negative way. In a negative way.
Yeah.
We've all got this thing called pride, ego, that we build up over time, and we misinterpret what it means to actually reward yourself with commendation. We actually turn it into something that becomes a negative thing, like pride, and we build it up to the point where we're actually afraid that if we sort of take that wall or veil and remove it, we're exposed and vulnerable, and people are going to take advantage of us.
And the thing is, that's okay. It's not. That fear is not completely unjustified. If you accept your vulnerability, yes, you can get hurt in any number of ways. So I'm not saying, oh, be vulnerable, there's no risk. There's big fucking risk. But I'm just saying the payoff. You're going to get hurt in life. You can't not get hurt in life. And if you want to build your life in a way where you're constantly prioritizing not getting hurt, fine, you'll get hurt less, but there's nothing extraordinary is going to happen. So I'm just a proponent of saying, fine, there's nothing wrong. You need to get hurt. It's fine.
It's part of learning and living, and
part of life,
growing. That's it. Well, Michael, welcome to Surfers Corner. We're here. This is where we're going to have our podcast at Lifestyle Surf Shop. Let's go, baby.